Hello, I'm Ruslan Deynychenko, one of the co-founders of the Stop Fake, Ukrainian fact-checking project. Fact-checking to combat propaganda and disinformation. The Ukrainian information space is filled with propaganda, disinformation, and fakes. They are created and shared by local and international agents, including Russian ones. How can they be countered? This is where fact-checking comes in handy. What is fact-checking and how does it work? Fact-checking is one of the ways to combat propaganda and disinformation. Our team has been doing this for more than 10 years and have come to several important conclusions. Every day we watch Russian TV channels, monitor social media and messengers, and have gathered a huge amount of information and data. How does it work? We find suspicious reports in the media or on social networks, conduct our own investigation, and if we manage to find convincing evidence disproving them, we share real facts with the audience. We write an article, talk about our research on TV, and post them on social networks. There are thousands of stories on our site, many of them translated into different languages. How fact-checking helps to fight propaganda? We are familiar with the results of studies showing that in some cases fact-checking can contribute to the spread of disinformation. When we share our refutations, we also reference the source material, and as a result we enable the spread of false narratives. However, we are convinced that fact-checking is still an effective tool. Firstly, fact-checkers help raise awareness of the problem. We convince politicians, experts, and the general population that propaganda exists and something must be done about this issue. Up until 2014, for example, there was no understanding of the significance of this problem in Ukraine, and propaganda media were able to distribute the content they created unabated and unchallenged. The evidence base collected by fact-checkers made it possible to identify the problem, the main players, and gave regulators and courts reason to respond accordingly. For instance, some media outlets had their broadcasting licenses revoked because of systematic distribution of fake narratives. This was not so obvious in 2014. Not everybody in Ukraine and Europe believed that Russian TV should be banned. But the evidence we collected proved that individual players consciously and deliberately use media as a weapon. Nowadays, it seems to us many countries understand the importance of the issue. In different markets, the situation is different and different measures are needed. But the main thing is not to ignore the problem, to identify it on time and prevent someone from using propaganda to start a war in your country. Destroy the reputation of propaganda media. We understand that this is not a universal tool, but in Ukraine, we and our colleagues managed to destroy the reputation of Russian media as a reliable source of information. No one believes what Russian TV channels say anymore. Sociological research shows that only 3 to 5% of citizens trust them. Fact-checkers support scientific research. Over the years, fact-checkers have collected a huge array of data about how fakes are spread, by whom, as well as when the fakes are launched. Our collection contains hundreds of thousands of records and is updated daily. This can be a very important source of information for scholars and historians who study propaganda and plan to write books about current events in the future. Fact-checkers help predict events. We are trying to understand how the Russian propaganda machine is organized and what are its weak points. Over the years, we have realized one important thing. Let's assume that key Russian media are totally dependent on the Kremlin and broadcast narratives favorable to it. And this means that by analyzing the content on the Russian federal TV networks, we can understand what the Russian government wants. Sometimes we can predict the future. In March of 2014, a few months before the war started, we were investigating a fake on Russian TV about Ukrainian refugees. We realized that Russia was really preparing places for refugees. Tents and sleeping bags were already bought long before the start of the war. This meant that the Russian media began to prepare public opinion for the arrival of refugees and the attack on Donbass long before the operation was launched. The history of 2014 repeated itself with the war of 2022. A year before the start of the so-called special operation, we began to record how Russian TV was preparing an excuse for an attack. In January and February of 2021, the police detained hundreds of young people in dozens of Russian cities. The Russian security service painted them as Ukrainian Nazis who were preparing terrorist attacks in Russian cities on the order of Ukrainian special services. We checked this information, and it also turned out to be a fake. All of the detainees were Russian and had zero connection with Ukraine. Most of them were released after a few days or weeks. It is not very typical to release terrorists who are detained with weapons, right? Our investigation and its public discussion at a high level exposed this plan and halted its implementation. During the entire year before the war, we observed other signs that the Kremlin was preparing for war. Not only political outcasts like Zhirinovsky, but also military experts and Russian government representatives began to talk about missile strikes on Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities on television. In this way, Russian public opinion was being convinced about the necessity of an attack on Ukraine. Evidence base for courts. We hope that the information we have collected will become an evidence based in future trials against Russian propagandists. Fact-checkers have collected numerous examples of deliberate lies. For example, in 2014, Russian media tried to obstruct the investigation into Malaysian flight MH17 catastrophe. This information represents an evidence base for future trials. All these years, we believed that the time would come when those who created and spread disinformation on an industrial scale would have to answer for their crimes. We are convinced that this will not only bring justice, but will also serve as an important lesson for those malign actors who plan to repeat this tactic in the future. Preserving evidence. We are currently working on systematizing and archiving our database. It's no secret that propagandists destroy evidence of their activities over time. Some publications might also be deleted by social media and messengers administration. AI and other challenges. Recently, fact-checkers are confronted with images, videos, and audio fakes created with artificial intelligence programs. New tools open up new opportunities for propagandists as well. AI enables the creation of very believable forgeries of images, voice, and video, and gives attackers new tools to create and share content. Computer programs and algorithms can automatically create accounts in social media and messengers and distribute posts on an industrial scale. In countering such activities, the cooperation of fact-checkers with social media platforms and messengers is vital. Practical exercises. You can try to find and debunk fakes yourself. To do this, go to our website stopfake.org. You can also find there useful tips.